Welcome to the You're Not Crazy podcast, hosted by Jessica Knight, a certified life coach who specializes in healing from narcissistic and emotional abuse. This podcast is intended to help you identify manipulative and abusive behavior, set boundaries with yourself and others, and heal the relationship with yourself so you can learn to love in a healthy way. You can connect with Jessica and find additional resources, content, and coaching at emotionalabusecoach.com.
Before we begin, I just want to make a quick note. At the end of this episode, I spend the last 4 minutes walking through the way people work with me and where to find resources, my links, and my courses. If you are a returning listener or are already a client, you can absolutely skip that part. If you're new or trying to figure out what kind of support you need, it's there for you. It's the last 4 minutes. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome back. Today, Najwa Zebian returns. We did a podcast about a month earlier, and I would say more clients brought up that podcast in our sessions than any other that I've done. And so we got together again to pick up where we left off last time, and with a line that she said that I haven't stopped thinking about, that the person who broke you was holding the pen to your story and you took it back. We talk about what it actually takes to take that pen back and why that decision terrifies people before it frees them. Her new book, The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You, comes out August 25th, 2026. And the book is very helpful. It goes very deep in helping people understand or wrap their minds around what they're still holding on to, what is theirs to heal, and what they want moving forward. All of her links, how to find her, the link to the book, everything is in the show notes. And I highly recommend listening to her, following Najwa, and beginning to open up to the ideas that she has on healing. Hello, thank you again for joining me so quickly for a second interview. I loved our first conversation.
So did I. Thank you so much for wanting to do this another time.
Of course. Can you quickly share, just in case somebody didn't listen to the last one or didn't read the title of the episode, who you are and what you do?
Yeah. My name is Najwa Zebian. I am a writer. I'm also currently in the process of becoming a licensed psychotherapist, but I've been doing this work for over 10 years. My background is in education. I actually have my doctorate in educational leadership. And it's interesting that my journey to writing books began with my very first group of students who were refugees to Canada. And when I first met them, they reminded me of myself when I first moved to Canada and just feeling so out of place and do I belong here and who am I? And so my journey to help them helped me discover myself and feel all the pains of displacement and feeling so out of place at the same time. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. It's amazing that you're becoming a psychotherapist too.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess I have a year left of that process as well.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm just going to kind of dive in. We did a little bit in our last episode that I will link to this one around what got you into this work and what sort of led you here. And then we dove into some of the core messages that you have. But I wanted to piggyback off of our last conversation because it is what I appreciate about you. And I think this is why the clients of mine have sent me your stuff for a long time, is that it's so authentic and raw and real.
Thank you.
You're not throwing in flowery words, it's like, you're like, this is what it is. And this is how we see it. And that's how my brain works. That's how I work with my clients too. And so one of the things that you said, and this is one of those things that I think if I ever saw you say this on an Instagram story or something like that, I would have saved the reel because it clicked. But at the end of our episode, you said, the person who broke you was carrying the pen in your story
Mm,
and you took it back. And
yes.
that image really stuck with me.
Mm,
And when you think about rewriting the story or beginning to write your own story, especially say if we take in the lens of a toxic relationship, how do you see if somebody is really having a hard time taking that pen back? What do you typically say, or how do you think about how they can begin to
mm,
just unravel
mm.
that piece?
What I would say is the moment you decide that you no longer want the power of your healing to be in the hands of the person who hurt you or broke you, you're going to feel really uncomfortable. You're going to feel really scared because your familiar for so long has been to wait for someone else to lead you. You became comfortable with being told what to do and who to be and how to think. And for you, that was a safer option because if it didn't work out, at least you could blame them and say, you're the one who led me to the wrong place. So tell yourself that you should anticipate fear, you should anticipate discomfort with you taking control over your life,
Mhm.
period. But that fear and that discomfort isn't a sign that you're doing the wrong thing. It's just a sign that you're doing something different from what you've done before and up to this point. One of the scariest things in life in general is to take a leadership role. Why? Because all of the responsibility for the decisions falls on you. If something doesn't work out, you're responsible. If something is a really big failure, you're responsible. That's why, even if you look at organizations, it's really hard for a person who's in a, let's say, in an associate position to say, I want to be a manager or I want to be something higher than that, because the more leadership you have, the more responsibility you carry. The stakes are much higher. And it's the same thing with your own life. When you say, I want to take the pen that writes my own story, now you need to be willing to take responsibility for every single decision you make instead of saying, well, somebody else told me to do that.
Yeah.
Somebody else told me to see myself that way. So that's the first thing you need to be aware of if you're at that point where you're like, I no longer want to keep the power of my healing in the hands of the people who broke me. Once you make peace with that and tell yourself, I've given enough grace to every single person in my life who's hurt me and said, their childhood traumas caused them to be hurtful. Their past relationships caused them to be hurtful. They didn't know any better. You've given them enough grace. You can give yourself that grace too if you do mess up. You're not expected to be perfect on your healing journey. You're not expected to know all the right answers from day one. You are figuring it out. So give yourself that same level of grace. The goal isn't to write the story perfectly at this time. The goal is to write your story, period.
Yeah. What sticks out to me so much there is the reframing around that there's a difference between understanding they have their own stuff and own healing, but that doesn't give really any justification to why they hurt you. You can turn the lens back to yourself of what do I need to do to heal?
Yes,
Where am I stuck? What am I not taking accountability for in my own healing? What is the apology that I'm waiting for?
exactly. Because that accountability part on your part, like instead of waiting them to be accountable or to take responsibility for what they did to you, you're saying that's up to you. If you want to admit where you did me wrong, that's on you. If you want to take responsibility for what you did, that's on you. I can't force you to do that. But what is within my power is to say, and is within my control is to say, here are the things that made me more vulnerable to be hurt in that way. And sometimes those things aren't negative things. Sometimes the things that make you vulnerable to be hurt more by somebody else are your empathy and your
Mhm.
ability to see things from different angles. That's why we make excuses for people and we say, oh, I see that wasn't your intentions. Sometimes it's your ability to really question things and be critical of them. Somebody who has the kind of power to break you is looking for a person who gives excuses, is looking for a person who is empathetic, is looking for a person who gives people chances. And those are things that would make you vulnerable. But at the same time, those are things that make you a very beautiful person. They're the reason that you're so kind. They're the reason that you don't take every little thing so personally in life, where you can look at people and not take who they are or what they've accomplished as reasons to be jealous. And so when you ask the question to yourself, what made me vulnerable to be even more hurt by that person? And what do I need to work on? Then you are, in a sense, taking responsibility for your own healing, but not in a way that says, I'm going to turn cold and I'm never again going to allow anybody close enough to me to hurt me in that way. Instead, you say, I will allow people close to me, but I will have boundaries because I understand that there is no way for me to form healthy bonds with people if I don't allow them close enough. It kind of builds your trust towards yourself instead of making you put up your armor and say, never again. I'm going to turn into a cold-hearted person that never allows anybody in. So it's kind of like striking that balance of understanding the things about you that the wrong people could really take for granted and say, I'm never putting those things in the hands of people who will do that to me. The moment there's a red flag, I walk away. The moment there's a really big, glaring confusion sign, like, hey, we don't know what's going on here, I'm going to slow down. I'm not going to take it as a sign to try harder. I'm not going to override my intuition. I'm not. So that's how you're taking responsibility for your own healing. And I think it's a really important point for anybody listening to differentiate between the type of healing that is self-blaming and that is self-shaming in a way where you're like, I was so dumb. I was so naive. Of course they were going to hurt me. I deserved it. Mm-hmm. Don't talk to yourself that way. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between that type of healing and the type of healing that separates whatever it was about you, even if it was low self-esteem, even if it was low self-worth, you separate that from the right that somebody has to hurt you. Because even if you do have low self-esteem, that doesn't give somebody else the right to break you. It doesn't. So you can say, you know what? You saw me at my worst. You saw me at my most vulnerable, and you decided to break me in that way. That's terrible that you did that, instead of saying, I should have never let you see me that way. What strengthens a relationship more than the person that's with you being able to see you during your worst times and saying, I love you regardless? Like, that's what strengthens relationships. I think of, for example, marriages, when a woman gives birth, or if one partner goes through, God forbid, cancer mm-hmm. or some health crisis. Those are the times when your partner is witnessing you at literally your weakest, like physically, emotionally, mentally. And would we ever say that being weak in that way gives the other person the right to hurt you because you're weak? No, we wouldn't say that. Mm-hmm. So why do we blame ourselves for someone's ability to take advantage of our emotional vulnerabilities and of our past, of our attachment style, mm-hmm. right? It helps to think about it that way. So if you are on that journey where you're like, I want to become the person who fixes me, which is a whole chapter in The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You, by the mm-hmm. way, like it's titled How to Be the One Who Always Fixes You. And in order to become that person, you have to stop focusing on the causation being you, as in they hurt me because I deserved it, or they hurt me because I did something, or because I said something, or because I was too attached, because I had too many insecurities. Because no, you don't talk like that. They hurt me because they decided to hurt me. They hurt me because they have the ability and the willingness to hurt me. They hurt me because that's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
You have to separate, like, you're deserving of pain, which you would never say that out loud. If it was just between you and yourself, you would never say, I deserve to be hurt. So why would you say they hurt me because I deserved it? They hurt me because I was too naive. They hurt me because they decided to.
Yeah. Or I let them hurt me.
Yeah, no,
like,
you didn't let them. I mean, if somebody threw a rock at you and the rock hit you, would you say that rock hit me because I let it? I'm pretty sure you were blindsided. And by the time you had time to react, the rock hit you already, you
right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And, to your point on when we're struggling with something like cancer, pregnancy, postpartum, or a job loss, like a job loss that is surprising and scary. I had yesterday, I had a client who had listened to our other episode, and she was talking about the idea of a hard time and staying through a hard time with someone. And she says she couldn't articulate exactly what it was that came from the episode. It was just almost the feeling of like, I don't have to stay in this. I don't have to just wait. And we talked a bit about like maybe what qualifies as a hard time, right? If somebody is treating me poorly and our marriage is deteriorating, and we've tried to work on it, and I've looked at myself and I've put work into it, and nothing has changed, and it's been 10 years of nothing changing. That is way different than somebody going through cancer treatment, and really struggling and being unable to fully show up in the relationship.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
interesting that you say that, because I actually wrote in The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You, when two people stand on their wedding day and they're reading their vows, and they say things like, or if they share a social media post and then the caption, it says, after everything we've been through. If everything you've been through is a whole lot of cheating and making you feel insecure and minimizing you and degrading you and breaking you down and never celebrating you, those aren't things that are like for better or for worse. Those aren't the hardships. The hardship of a relationship shouldn't be convincing the person you're with to treat you right.
Yeah.
The hardships are the things that you go through together, because maybe one of you got sick, maybe a child you have got sick. Again, God forbid, I never hope for these things to happen. Maybe you go through a financial crisis together. Maybe a house that you're trying to buy isn't working out, but you really need a house. You really need a place to live. Those are the kinds of things. Or one of you got laid off from their job and they're going through some kind of depression because they feel like they're aimless in life. Those are the kinds of hardships. It's not treat me right and respect me and don't cheat on me and
hide and controlling the money and isolating me. Those are not the things. Those are basic respect. Yeah, that's yeah. And
sorry, that was me.
One of the other points that we touched on, this was also kind of toward the end, is around boundaries and when you set them. And I think I say this all the time, but it could have been both of us, that when you set a boundary with somebody and they are controlling in some way, that tends to escalate. They tend to escalate the behavior because they're reacting to the boundary. And, when you were talking about these kinds of people being willing to take responsibility for your role, but don't push all people away, but have really internal boundaries around how you are going to be with them. And if there are red flags or if there is poor treatment, then you make that decision for yourself and you begin to, build a world of people that fill your soul and don't take away from it. And I guess I wonder what you think about those boundaries, like when we set boundaries with the controlling people or the
Mhm.
people that really just want to be around us for our empathy or people pleasing or our ability to always forgive, those people are the ones that end up taking advantage of us. They don't deserve that right to be
Mhm.
so close to us.
Yes. With people like that who take your boundaries as something to challenge, as something to break, as something that's like an insult to them, like, how dare you put this boundary in my face? You have to be relentless with how rigid you are with those boundaries. And I'm very cautious in saying that because there are some situations where when you put up that kind of forceful, strict boundary, that person might really escalate and they might really become dangerous. So
Mhm.
always put your safety first. If you feel like upholding this boundary is putting you in physical danger or emotional danger, then don't be hard on yourself if you feel like you have to be a little bit lenient with that boundary, but not with the intention of keeping that situation forever. Like, you do it in the moment to protect yourself, but you start working toward actually fully removing that person from your life.
Mhm.
Because then that really crosses a line of, I can't be safe with this person. I can't fully have like red lines that I draw without being in danger of being hurt by this person. And that's the extreme case. That's why I
Yeah.
have to put
Yeah.
that as a disclaimer, because I do understand some people might be listening and saying, like, I've done that before and I was in physical danger. And so I would never do that again. So always put your safety first. But if you are able to uphold those boundaries in a way that says, I don't care how much you guilt me. I don't care how many times you call or text me trying to, like, let's say you separated from a partner and you have a child together and you still have to have some level of contact with them. And you've made it clear that you're only going to discuss matters of where your child is going to be at what point, blah, blah, blah. But they're still trying to keep like personal conversations with you, or they're trying to keep tabs on you, or they're trying to get you to re engage with them. They're trying to upset you in some way by saying certain things that are hurtful. In those situations, when you can reinforce that boundary in a way that actually has consequences, like if they say something to you that's really mean or that's trying to get a rise out of you, you can say something like, I will let our lawyer or my lawyer
Mhm.
know that you've been communicating this way. Because some people, nothing works with them other than something that really truly scares them. So,
Mhm.
and I'm talking about an extreme situation, but let's say this is a family member where you've gone minimal contact with them after multiple times of saying, when you're around me, I don't want you to be overbearing in a way that's like you're trying to control the way I live my life and the decisions I make for myself, but they continue to do that. And so you've gotten to a point where you're like, I will only see you once or twice a year over holidays or over, family gatherings, but there will be no deep conversations. You will not know anything about my life. And if you do try to ask me questions that make me uncomfortable, then I will not continue this conversation. I think being like very rigid with your
Mhm.
boundaries with people like that is very important. And it's for somebody who's listening to this type of podcast, I'm willing to bet anything. They're highly empathetic.
Mhm.
They are either recovering people pleasers or, in the depths of people pleasing and they don't know how to get out of it. It will be very hard for you if you are like that to set boundaries and uphold them because there's something internal coming up saying, You're
Yeah.
doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong. What are you doing? You're upsetting this person. They're going to be disappointed. They're going to think this of you. They're going to say this about you. And so to work on strengthening the core of who you are by reminding yourself that if someone requires you to be someone you're not in order for them to respect you or love you or see you as a good person or talk, nicely about you, if they require you to not have any boundaries, then they don't love you. They don't respect you. They see you as somebody that you're like a doormat. And all you're doing is saying, like, can I make my back easier for you to break? You know, can I make myself a better punching bag for you? That's what you're doing. People who require you to do that are not your people. So when you strengthen your understanding of who you are and what true love and true respect actually look and feel like, people who challenge your boundaries or make you feel like you're doing something wrong by having boundaries in the first place or enforcing them, like, oh, you're being so cruel. Those are people who benefit from you being nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not your ultimate goal of living an authentic life.
Yeah. And that reminds me so much of, well, this is such a theme in the book, is don't stop trying to fix what they broke.
Yes.
Like you're especially for it's like the family dynamic, like you said, there's two people or three people and it's you and them. You're always going to be positioned as the villain because that's where they need you to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How many times have you, and I'm asking this question to the listeners as well, how many times have you found yourself with somebody who hurt you so badly, but you end up apologizing to them for bringing up what they did, for making them uncomfortable by reminding them of the boundary that you set 100 times,
Yeah.
by comforting
Living
them
in the past.
yeah,
in air quotes.
yes, and basically trying to convince them that you don't think they're a bad person just because they did that thing. Like, you become the healer for the person who's breaking you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so many of us have done that, and it stems from a really good place within you, a place that's, you're a healer, you're an empath. You're somebody who doesn't want to upset people, but what about your upset? What about your hurt? What about your pain? It's not your responsibility to make the person who hurt you feel better about the way they hurt you.
Right. And that you need to somehow make yourself softer and contort yourself more when you're the one in pain.
Let them sit in the discomfort of the bad thing they did to you. Let them take responsibility. Like, let them stand on what they did. A lot of the times, I've heard this so many times when one person breaks the other in a relationship or in a friendship or within a family, like they break you so badly. And then the person who's broken confronts the other person and says, like, how could you do this? Like, I know, for example, I know you cheated on me. I know you've been having an affair, or I know you've been backstabbing me for so long, saying all these terrible things about me or whatever. And then the person who did all those terrible things, instead of apologizing or trying to explain themselves to you, many times they become super violent because they can't handle the mirror that you just held up in their face that shows them that they just did something really terrible.
Yeah.
So you end up feeling like you're the villain, like you're the reason that the relationship or the friendship ended because you brought up the bad thing they did. When really, when they did the bad thing, they effectively ended the relationship that they had with you. But if you have a fear of people walking away, and if you have a fear of being abandoned, you're going to let that fear override what their decision to hurt you told you about the way they see you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And right. And so their inability or lack of willingness, it doesn't matter which one it is, because the result is always the same, to apologize, to take responsibility, to say, I was a jerk, I messed up, I did this, I did that. It shouldn't be your sign to try harder to explain to them how bad what they did was or how it hurt you. They know. And if they don't, like sometimes people will be like, well, I wasn't thinking about how this action would affect you. I was being selfish. I was just thinking of myself. And I've said this a million times before, and I'll say it again. Sometimes it hurts more that your pain was just a byproduct of someone's inconsideration of you. Sometimes it actually hurts less to know that they intended to hurt you, because
That's
the other,
true.
right?
Yeah.
The other option is, well, I wasn't even thinking about you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the times where people have said that it was more intentional, or I just wanted to get you back, or I was upset that you did these things, it was easier for me to internally see what was happening and move on, or take a different course than
Yes.
when it was, what are you talking about? I didn't intend to hurt you. That wasn't what I
Mm-hmm.
meant. It was like, okay, but you did it, and then we end up in the
Yes.
cycle of like, I don't care, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
You end up being stuck explaining to them what they already know they did. And that's a terrible place to be in, because now you're the one who's on the defensive. You're the one, it's like you're standing in a courtroom where you're being sued for something they did.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they're putting you on the stand to explain to them the damages of what they did. And it's like, you're the one who should be defending yourself, not me.
Yeah. Yeah. This sort of brings me into your new book and the idea of the apology and the way that you discuss it, but also the idea around closure, because everything we're talking about would either like naturally or unnaturally lead to an apology or a non-apology. And I don't remember exactly where it was, but you say that even if you got the apology, even
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't take away the pain, because the acknowledgement isn't a magic switch and it's just words. You still have feelings that you're going to feel based on what was said. There's still healing that you need to get, like that you need to work through on your own.
Yes. The best way for me to describe this, and I think this will make a huge difference to anybody listening, is if you allowed somebody to stand behind you, that requires a great level of trust where your back is to them and you know they're behind you, but you trust them so well that you don't need to keep looking back to see what they're doing. And if you gave someone that level of trust and they ended up figuratively backstabbing you, but think about it literally. They stood
Mm-hmm.
behind you, they took a knife, and they stabbed you in the back. If that person says to you, I'm sorry, I did it because I was so jealous of how great of a person you are that I needed to hurt you. Or if that person just looked at you and said, what? What? Like, what are you looking at? And they denied what they did.
Yeah.
Whether they apologized or not, you still have a knife in your back. You still need to get yourself the help that you need. The apology is nice to hear, doesn't take away from the pain they caused you. You still have a knife in your back. You still have healing to do. You still have a recovery time to go through. You still have a scar to tend to. And for everybody listening, I wrote about this on Instagram yesterday. When I say somebody who broke you, I'm not talking about the little things like
Mm-hmm.
things that happen every day in relationships and friendships and a little misunderstanding. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the kind of pain that really rocks your world, the kind of pain where maybe they cheated on you, they had an
Mm-hmm.
affair, they've been doing all these things behind your back that you didn't know about. Maybe they took loans out in your name. Maybe they were smiling to your face and talking badly about you for years without you knowing. Maybe it could be even in a place where you were working, where you were promised a promotion 5 years ago, and now you're 5 years in and you're told we don't need you anymore, and you never got anything out of it. I'm talking about the kind of pain that hits you on a soul level.
Yeah.
Those kinds of pains, it doesn't matter if a person comes and says, I'm really sorry, I feel terrible for what I did. Well, what you did is still impacting me in so many ways. So thank you for your apology, but I still have to heal from what you did.
Yeah. I think it was last week you sent out your newsletter, your weekly newsletter was about a trauma bond,
Yes.
and it's like, that's the pain that you're talking about, is the pain that is like our brains don't know what's happening and we're trying to make sense of our reality. That's the pain. It's not you forgot, to pick up the groceries I asked for. It's my entire world doesn't make sense. Right.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Actually, the post I wrote on Instagram yesterday, there's one slide where I wrote, and for someone to break you, it's not just a small misunderstanding or the usual conflict that happens in every relationship. Like, what would break you in a relationship? Like, really think about that question. It's certainly not a little misunderstanding over who's taking out the garbage,
Yeah.
Like,
No.
it's not things like that. A trauma bond, which to me is I view it as the worst case of a toxic bond
Yeah.
because it really ravels its way around you in a way where the harder you try to leave, the more stuck you feel, because it takes a while to kind of, if you're thinking of an analogy of the thread, and I'm pretty sure we talked about this last time, there's a thread that holds you to another person, but in a trauma bond, that thread isn't just holding you to them. It's winding its way around you and it's knotting itself around you. And for you to get yourself out of it, you have to unravel it. You have to unknot things. You have to tell yourself, this is going to take a while. That's why people who leave these trauma bonds go through such bad withdrawal. They think, I can't live without this person, because they got so used to feeling that level of chaos and drama and attachment to that person that they feel like it's better to be attached and in pain than be detached and in worse pain because I don't know how to live without it. Yeah.
And that feels like an addiction. It feels
Yes.
like you're withdrawing from a drug. And I've talked about this before, but like, people also get physically sick. I got physically sick when I was withdrawing from my trauma bond, probably. And I remember my therapist at the time saying, like, this is because all the chemicals that were being produced in your body to keep you in this thing. And now it's like with the discard, it was finally at a point where contact was ended. I got like very sick just because I was probably holding on with all my might for the entire time.
Mm, yes. I mean, you're going to get sick not because you're now in a healthy place, but again, I love using analogies, but if you were living in a space that only pumped out air that is really dirty and that your lungs had to adapt to filtering out so much toxicity that's in the air. I know this is not like a legit analogy, but it helps you to picture it. Like, if you've been in a toxic environment for so long that you have adapted to having every single day to work through so much toxicity, and now all of a sudden you're in a place that's giving you clean, healthy air, well, your lungs have still adapted to a certain level of toxicity. And now it feels like you're getting sick because you have to transition into a different function. You have to now get used to breathing fully clean air. It's just like being malnourished for so long. And then all of a sudden you have all the food that's healthy available in the world for you to eat. Your system is still adapted to a certain level of starvation. And in this case, you're starved for love, affection, respect, understanding, peace. So you will feel sick because there's a change that happened. It's like a whirlwind for your system.
Yeah. And it's all healing, or it's trying to heal itself.
Yes.
Yeah. When people come out of, or they're starting to come out of a trauma bond or acknowledging a trauma bond, they talk a lot about closure. And I loved when I read your book, that's the first chapter is closure is a myth. And
yes,
I loved starting with that because I think it took me a long time in my own personal healing to get to the point where I actually understood in my bones what it meant when people say closure comes from you or closure comes from within. I really didn't understand that concept. I was stuck on that last conversation that so many people get stuck on.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that you started this way because I'm sure a lot of people that will read your book, they may be in a space where they're still waiting for that apology or that acknowledgement. And I was curious, I know you're so thoughtful in the messages that you're delivering and that you have delivered in your other books too. What made you start with it? What made you start with that concept, that chapter?
Well, the very first time that I said these words out loud, the one who broke you can't heal you, was about a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
But then I put them in a book of mine. And then I was doing an interview with Lisa Bilyeu, and I said these words again. And it was in response to a question she asked me. And it was about whether we need the person who hurt us to give us closure or whatever. I don't remember exactly how she asked it. But the words that came out of me were like, do you really need the person who hurt you to tell you, I hurt you and I'm sorry and I feel awful that I did it?
Yeah.
You don't need it. You want it because you think that you can't heal or move forward unless they give you permission by telling you, yeah, you're right. I did hurt you that badly.
Mm-hmm.
And the one who broke you can't be the one who heals you. And when it comes to closure, that's what we're waiting for. We're hoping that if that person explains to us, if they give us the reason, the justification for why it is that they hurt us, if we can just understand the reason, which is what our society has named as closure. I want to know why you did what you did. Then we think, then I can heal. But again, the reason that a person you trusted stood behind you and stabbed you in the back changed the fact that they stabbed you? No, it doesn't. So for me, closure, it's a construct, it's a myth. It's not something that only can be given to you from the person who hurt you. You can give yourself that closure by saying, what you did to me is a good enough reason for me to give myself permission to heal from what you put me through. That's why very early on in the book, I say, when you find yourself sitting there waiting for closure, waiting for their apology, waiting for them to admit what they did, tell yourself, I know what happened to me. I know what I lived through. It was that bad. I have the right to heal from it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, if you can reframe your understanding of what closure looks like and what the source of it is, you, not them, you will be able to accelerate this journey of fixing what they broke inside of you. Stop waiting for the last conversation. That's something I wrote in The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You. Let go of your need for the last conversation. Stop forcing yourself to forgive the things that are unforgivable just because you think that if you don't forgive, then that means something bad about you. Grieve what you thought you had with them, grieve who you thought they were, grieve the version of you that was in love with them or that did build a friendship with them or that did see them a certain way. Be willing to pick up the pieces on your own and be willing to move forward without ever knowing what the reason was that they hurt you in the way they did, because the reason does not matter. It does not matter. It might give your ego a boost if they tell you, oh, I hurt you because I was so intimidated by how successful you were. And I felt so down on my luck that I needed to hurt you to feel better about myself. Okay. That helps your ego because you're like, see, I knew it. They did it out of weakness. But do you need that validation from them that they did it out of weakness for you to know that they did it out of weakness? Cruelty is so much easier than kindness for a person who is cruel by nature.
And it also keeps you tethered to them a bit more then, right? Because then if it's like, if you get an apology, even an honest apology, it almost reopens the door that you're trying to walk away from.
Yes, exactly. And I did write about this actually in The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You. I did say sometimes you convince yourself that you want the last conversation because you want to understand why they did what they did. But the truth is, you want to have that last conversation because you want to keep the door open, that you hope that things will be rekindled between the two of you. And so you have to be honest with yourself about what your intentions are. A lot of the times it takes a while for your system to really truly reject a person who broke you, especially if you were trauma bonded to them, especially if you had a really long history with them. It's really hard for you to accept that this is actually the final end, because those types of relationships tend to have a lot of on and off, a lot of breakups and makeups, and a lot of chaos and drama. And so to get to a point where you're like, you know what, this is actually completely over, that's tough to get to. So killing hope is so difficult. I said this yesterday in an interview I was doing too. I said, when people from the outside looking in look at somebody who is stuck in a trauma bond, for example, they'll say, like, why don't you just leave? Like, why would you stay with somebody who's treating you like that? And it's like, a person who's in that isn't choosing to be hurt. They're not choosing to be lied to. They're not choosing to be manipulated. They are in that because they have hope that A, the relationship will go back to what it was, or that if they're patient enough, the relationship is going to be what they always wanted it to be. They have fear that if they give up now, that this person's going to move on and give the next person exactly what they've been begging for. So they're not in it out of wanting pain. They're in it out of having hope. And so you have to have a conversation with them about what it is that they want for themselves. And realistically speaking, are they ever going to receive that based on what this person has shown them? If you speak to somebody who is stuck in that kind of situation from a place of, I know better than you, and I'm looking at you as you are such a weak person, then you're not empowering them. You're actually contributing to them staying stuck in their situation. You have to speak to this person as, you know what? You have the ability to choose for yourself. You can tell the difference between right and wrong. I know you've been in this situation for long enough where it eroded your self-esteem and it eroded your trust in your ability to make healthy decisions for yourself. But you are somebody who knows what's best for you. Like, you come from a place of really empowering them and reminding them that they can choose for themselves. That's ultimately the support system you need to be building around them. Don't talk to a patient like they're a patient. You talk to them like they are somebody who has the ability to make good decisions for themselves. You remind them of that version of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is probably from an older interview. I listened to yours, but I've heard you talk about giving yourself permission for a loss to be real. And that just popped in my head when you were explaining, like, when people are questioning you and you're questioning yourself, and it's like almost allowing yourself the ability to grieve that this relationship, the trauma bond, it is ending, whether it's with a family member or it's with somebody else. And that is going to be painful. And that the person you will be on the other side of this is going to be much different than the person that stayed in the trauma bonded relationship.
Absolutely. This is probably one of the most viral things that every time I post it on Instagram in any form, whether it's written, it's video, it's the exact wording, not the exact wording, it just hits so many people. And it's this: you will never go back to the person you were before the thing that broke you. We usually set a milestone for our healing, like, I just want my old self back. Well, you're never going to get your old self back. You're creating a new version of you that has gone through what you went through. It does your pain no good for you to say, I want to erase the fact that I went through you. I'm going to live through you and get to the other side. But you can't be on the other side of pain by going backwards.
Yeah. Oh, I
So,
love that. Yeah.
right? Yeah. So again, give yourself some grace. What you went through changed you. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. Like, we are ever evolving as human beings. We're literally changing every moment that goes by. Your body's changing, the way you think is changing, the way you see the world is changing, and your strengths, your weaknesses, the things you tolerate, the things you love, the things you hate, everything is changing. So why would you want to go back? And I understand when people say, I want what I had back then. It's like you wanted the version of you that wasn't aware that people could be this cruel. And it's like, actually, it doesn't make you cynical to be aware that these people exist and that this kind of pain exists. It just makes you better at discerning between what's right and wrong for you. And it gives you a better filter when you meet new people for what is a red flag and what's a green flag and what's a yellow flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To almost bring it back to where we started of deciding who gets to stay in my world and who needs to be way more limited.
Yes.
Not welcome.
Yes.
Anymore.
Exactly. So take that as an indication that moving forward with your life in a way that honors the experience that you went through is one of the best things you can do for yourself to fix what somebody else broke inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
If they broke something and you were literally thinking about it, if you were wounded in some way, you have an injury on your arm, you get stitches. At first they're going to look terrible, but over time the scar will start to heal and you'll barely see anything on there, but it's still there. And you still know every time you look in that same spot that, I really did go through that. And it's a reminder for you that you actually overcame it. Like, it didn't break you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this again. We only talked a month ago, but I really enjoyed our conversation. I love discussing this with you and your perspective. I think it helps so many people.
Thank you. I enjoyed talking to you again. And I can't believe it's been a whole month because it doesn't feel that way.
I know. Well, I'm sure you're busy, especially because your book is coming out. We're recording this on the 29th, but it comes out in less than a month now.
Crazy.
Can you just tell people how they can find this book? The one
Yes.
Broke You Can't Heal You. And obviously, I put all your links in the last show notes. I'm going to do it for this one, but just how they can find you as well.
Yes. You can find The One Who Broke You Can't Heal You wherever books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Amazon, wherever you buy books. It's also available as a Kindle, Kobo, also on audio book platforms. I actually narrate the book myself. So if you enjoy listening to me, you can get the audio book.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. You can also find my podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And just make sure you have the right spelling of my name, Najwazebian. So all of my platforms have the same username at Najwa Zebian. There's a whole lot of content on there that will be healing and therapeutic for you. And my hope with this book and with any work that I put out there is for you to remember how much power you actually have over your own healing, that you don't need help from especially the people who gave you something to heal from, to heal from it. And again, great to get the apology. It would be great to get the validation. Of course it helps, but it is not necessary for your healing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's such a powerful note to end on. Thank you again so much.
Of course. Thank you.
And I really look forward to everybody reading the book or listening to it. I listened to the first few of yours because I did enjoy listening to you and hearing you say the words too.
Thank you.
If this episode resonated and you're realizing that what you're dealing with isn't just stress or miscommunication. There are ways to get support that don't minimize what you're experiencing. I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes telling you about my offerings, because at the core of my business is one-on-one coaching. The podcast is something that I do because I do like being able to help a broader audience. But the truth is that the core of my work is really coaching and providing other offerings so that people can begin to heal. At the center of everything I do is one-on-one coaching. That's where I slow things down, listen closely, and help you make sense of what's happening in your specific situation. It's not a template. It's not just based on theories, but it's really focused on your real life. Some people start with a one-time validation call. That is a single focus session where we look at one specific situation or pattern that you're struggling with. And the goal isn't to fix your life or push you into decisions. It's to help you name what's happening, put it into context of reality, help you notice where you are in it, and offer some feedback and tools to how to navigate it. I also offer an intro call. The intro call used to be called the clarity call, and it's a short call where you can share what's going on for you, and I can explain how I work and whether I'm the right fit for your situation. There's no obligation to continue after that. It's simply a way for us to get on the same page before moving forward. For people who need ongoing support, I offer weekly or biweekly coaching. This is especially helpful if you're navigating emotional abuse, trauma bond, high conflict divorce, or custody and co-parenting with a difficult or controlling person. Ongoing work allows us to track patterns over time, stay anchored when things escalate, and make decisions in a way that protects your nervous system and your long-term stability. All of my coaching options can be found on my websites, emotionalabusecoach.com and highconflictdivorcecoaching.com. Both links are available in the show notes of this episode. In addition to one-on-one coaching, I offer several self-paced courses and programs. They're called Divorcing a Narcissist 101, How to Document for Family Court, the Emotional Abuse Breakthrough Course, Setting Boundaries with a Narcissist, and Unhooked, which is my program and private podcast that walks you through the full cycle of abuse, helps you map it out in your relationship, and shows you how to begin to break free from the trauma bond. I also write on Substack, where I explore topics like trauma bonding, emotional abuse, coercive control, high conflict divorce, and the cluster B dynamics. There's a free option and a paid membership that offers deeper dives, Q&As, and additional resources. Everything that I do and everything that I build is around one core truth and message: that you're not crazy, you shouldn't feel crazy, and that even though I can see patterns in what you're experiencing, it doesn't mean that it's normal. It's not healthy. My work is really about helping you understand what's happening and begin to trust yourself again. All of the links that I shared are in my show notes, and I really appreciate you being here.